Hey everyone, good morning. It is Tuesday, January 14th, and we're going to do a little Jays talk. Today I'm just going to touch on a few things quickly. First up being the arbitration. Glad to hear that we went through and got deals done with all of our arbitration eligible guys. We didn't have to, file and trial anyone. We don't have to go and do all those arguments and that awkward hearing where you have to kind of slander your own player to get their price down. So in my opinion, it's always good to avoid that when you can. You'd like to see some extensions get done, but there's still time for that. And the fact that they're agreeing on value and everyone seems to be in, good spirits on that front can only help the cause. So we're optimistic, but as it stands, having the guys locked up for 2025 is a positive in my eyes. So yeah, I'm glad to hear about that. Next up is the Jeff Hoffman signing. And I've heard about the two failed. I'm just bringing up some notes here now. I've heard about the two failed physicals through Baltimore and Atlanta. I'm not super concerned about that. Similar to Jordan Romano, like when we didn't like what we saw with Romano, there's clearly a differing of opinion from club to club on, for all we know, maybe Atlanta or Baltimore were looking to convert him into a starter, and they didn't like what they saw there in terms of being able to give him, 150, 180 innings. And that could be why they backed out. Whereas a team like the Blue Jays swoop in at a lower dollar value and say, nope, like we only view him as a closer, and we think that his elbow or his shoulder, or I believe they said the right shoulder was the issue in the other two organizations. Maybe the way they're looking at it is, yeah, we're only banking on him for 50 or 60 innings, and we need a guy with that elite upside, so we're just going to go for it anyways, and we are not concerned with the physical in that context to get, say 150 good innings out of him over the next 3 years. Is there risk involved? For sure, but you also are getting who could be an elite closer for 3 years, $33 million. And if he works out, even if 2 of the years he's elite and then he goes down with some sort of arm injury, I think you're still happy with that contract all in all. The worst case scenario would be he goes down with something this year and then can't recover from it, but that's a risk with every pitcher, really. Just to go quickly over the depth chart now in the bullpen, sliding Hoffman into the closer's role really helps shore things up because, as I'm seeing here, it's got Chad Green in kind of a setup role, Jimmy Garcia setup role, Swanson middle relief, Sandlin middle relief, Little in middle relief. So that's 6 guys right there that you feel really good about, although only one of them is a lefty, which is a bit of a problem. Sandlin, Swanson, a lot of these guys have good split fingers and can pitch to lefties really effectively, but I think you still like to see a little bit more of a different look to the batters, especially in, a 3 and 4 game series against some of those good playoff level teams. You're going through Baltimore, you're going through New York. You'd like to be able to give them a couple different looks over the course of the 3 to 4 game sets, but that's something they can also figure out between now and spring training or throughout the season as injuries crop up and as need arises. So I'm not super concerned about the left-handed aspect. I'm just glad we've got 6 guys that we feel really good about, and one of them is left-handed. The 2 at the bottom of the list are Zach Pop and Tommy Nance. I'm always going to feel conflicted about Zach Pop. I know it's the popular thing to hate him because of how more or less garbage he pitched last year, and there's no defense of his season. It just was not good. But you still got a 97 mile per hour sinker with a cutter and a slider in there, and I'll keep hammering that he's the perfect candidate that you would see go to a different organization and then figure it out and put up a really brilliant season, and you go, yeah, of course that happened. He had a wipeout slider and a 97 mile an hour sinker. Like, maybe the other team quiets down his mechanics a little bit, gets him throwing more consistent strikes, and it all clicks. He's 28 years old. It's not too late for that to happen. So I don't mind keeping him on the roster, especially when you've got literally 6 guys in front of him for leverage roles. This means that he's going to start the year basically doing mop-up stuff and low leverage. So not very many teams have 8 guys that they're running out there that can all be setup men and closers. So yeah, I'm all right with keeping one or 2 of those guys around. Tommy Nance showed some flashes. I don't hate keeping him around either. Good breaking ball, a bit of a different pitch repertoire than a lot of the other guys. A lot of the other guys are kind of split finger sinker type guys, whereas Tommy Nance comes in with the bigger breaking ball. So yeah, I'm okay with the bullpen as it stands. Six guys that are really really confident in. Even if one goes down with injury in spring training, you're still solid there. And we've got some young guys that can still come up and some trades that can still be made. So all in all, bullpen looks good to me. Definitely a vast improvement over last year, and I think that difference alone, even if we can get up to a league average bullpen, you're looking at like 4 to 5 wins probably there, just from not being absolutely trash. So yeah, optimism there. On that front, TJ Brock also just went down with Tommy John surgery, I heard last night, I guess. So that sucked to hear. TJ Brock was really going to factor into this bullpen this year, I think. He's got electric stuff, and he's one of our top prospects, especially when it comes to arms and in the bullpen potential. I think one day he will be a setup man or potentially a closer if everything falls right. But yeah, really exciting arm there. So it sucks to hear that he's out for the whole year. But yeah, hopefully that won't come into too big of a factor this year because we've got enough depth to get through. My third point was Roki Sasaki. This kind of came out of nowhere. At the start of the process, we heard the Blue Jays were very interested in him. They'd done a lot of scouting him in Japan, a lot of visits. They've really put a lot of eggs into that basket. But throughout the last, I don't know, month or so, we haven't heard anything about the Blue Jays. It's all been, Dodgers, Padres, even more of like the Mets and the Yankees being involved. So hearing that we're a finalist there, what else is new? But this play feels a little bit different because the reports are that Sasaki wants a smaller media market. So the Dodgers don't really fit that. They're he cut New York teams out, which tells me he's serious about that. So it makes me a little bit not surprised because the Dodgers are obviously the favorite, but if you're saying you want a smaller market, don't want all the media attention, you're willing to cut New York out, then why aren't the Dodgers cut out? And if the Dodgers are still in, like why aren't the Mets still in kind of thing? Like it's a little bit confusing to me why the Blue Jays would make it through that cut, whereas the Dodgers and the Yankees are somehow different from each other. So like the Yankees get cut, the Dodgers get left in, the Mets get cut, the Padres get left in. There's not a lot of consistency there in my mind. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it, but there aren't any reasons for leverage plays in this scenario, really, because he's going to get every single team's max international pool money. Every team would fork over, whatever he wants. They're all going to offer him to move mountains for him. Yeah, there doesn't appear to be an obvious leverage play here in terms of having to include the Blue Jays that make it any easier or make the Dodgers or the Padres offer him anything different. So I believe that he has genuine interest in Toronto. I just don't 100% know what that interest is, other than, as I mentioned, wanting to play for a smaller media market. Not that Toronto is small, but the media isn't as intense in Canada, and he can kind of go about his day a little bit more. So that's the only thing I can really see. I guess the other point is a lot of people rave about the facilities and things that Toronto have, so I don't know if that's a big deal to him either. But yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. Like I think we've got a shot based on us still being listed as finalists with no obvious reason for him to keep us as finalists. But at the same time, this feels like one where he's going to ultimately go to the Dodgers or Padres, and that makes more sense to me. And I think that makes more sense to everybody because it's on the West Coast. He knows the Japanese players in those markets. The weather's nicer. Like, basically, we've been hurt so many times up here in Canada that you don't expect something good like this to happen. So yeah, as I'll reiterate, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that there is something that interests him about coming to Toronto. I just don't know what it is, so it's hard for me to get that excited. If I had heard he had family in Toronto, or he had some ex teammates. I know there are some ex Japanese league players in Toronto's system, like in management and in scouting and things like that. So there are some ties to the area. I just haven't heard any that's compelling enough for me to think, oh yeah, that'll actually move the needle, if that makes sense. So I'll wrap up there, but I'd like you guys to leave some comments below and let me know what you think. Are you optimistic based on how the ARB meetings went or how the contracts got sorted out? Do you think that bodes well for Vladdy's extension or maybe a Varsho or Kirk extension? On the Hoffman front, are you worried about the physicals? Do you think we bought a lemon, or do you think he'll be good for us? And how are you feeling about the bullpen? And then on the Sasaki news, are you allowing yourself to buy into the hype? Are you getting excited, or is it just we've been burned one too many times and can't let it happen again? I'm curious to know where the rest of the fans are at. So with that, you all have a good day, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.